Hello, friends. It's Katie back with another episode of my vlog and, of course, another Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. We only watched 4 films this week, but boy, did we start with a doozy. One of my absolute favorite films of all time, Big Trouble in Little China, of course, from 1986, directed by John Carpenter. There's not much for me to say about this movie except that I absolutely love it. It is a nearly perfect movie as far as I'm concerned. 10 out of 10 on the rating scale, totally required viewing. And if for some reason you're watching this vlog but you have never seen Big Trouble in Little China, I invite you to watch it as soon as you possibly can. Lucky for you, it's available on YouTube for free, and you can watch the whole thing right here on this platform, which is incredibly awesome. What to say about this film? It's got incredible writing. It's got incredible acting. It's got incredible directing. It's got a killer story. The loose basis of the story is we have Jack Burton, who's played by Kurt Russell, who is ostensibly the hero of the film, but boy, he really comes off more like a sidekick in this movie. He comes rolling into San Francisco in his big rig. He makes a bet with his friend Wang, who owns a Chinese restaurant. Wang can't pay him back. Jack has to follow him back to the restaurant to try and get money. He finds out that Wang is going to the San Francisco airport to pick up his fiancée, who's flying in from China. So they go out to the airport to pick her up together because Jack's not going to let Wang out of his sight until he pays back the debt that he owes him. And when they get to the airport, Wang's fiance gets kidnapped by a gang of Chinese underworld gangster type characters who take her off somewhere else. And our heroes, again, Jack Burton is the star, Kurt Russell's the star of the movie, but Wang, as played by Dennis Dunn, is really the hero of the story. They go off to try and rescue Wang's fiance from the Chinese underworld. They immediately get caught in an alleyway in Chinatown. They're in a big rig. There's no trailer on the truck, but it's still way too big for the alley that they've gone down. And they immediately wind up in the middle of what starts out as a funeral procession, turns into a gang fight, and then becomes this just crazy Chinese martial arts with lots of magic and extra trickery thrown into it battle scene that they then have to escape from. They meet up with the 3 storms, thunder, lightning, and rain. They meet up with David Lopan, the mysterious and ancient Chinese wizard who has a curse put on him and can't have a corporeal form until he finds a green-eyed woman to marry. Turns out that Wang's fiance has green eyes, and that's why she was kidnapped at the airport. So once we've established this kind of setup for the story, Wang and Jack decide to go rescue Wang's fiance, and they proceed to plunge into the world of the underworld underneath San Francisco Chinatown and get mired up in this insane adventure story where the action is just nonstop. It doesn't let up once it gets going. This movie is just go, 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 go. And it's funny, it's dramatic, it's got great martial arts choreography. The fight scenes are awesome. And possibly the best part of it, like I said, is that Kurt Russell thinks he's the hero. He walks around puffing himself up, sticking his chest out, making all these big proclamations about what he's going to do. But he's kind of a fumbling sidekick character. At one point, he knocks himself out when they're about to go into a battle scene. And he's basically clueless the whole movie. He has no idea what's going on until the very end of the movie. But this movie is just a rip-roaring, totally amazing, fun time. The 3 Storms characters are awesome. David Lopan's crazy headquarters is awesome. All of the various monsters that they run into are awesome. All of the ways that the magic users in the movie do their magic tricks are awesome. It's just an incredible film. There's not much that I would change about it. I would say my one criticism of this film, and it has always stood out as a weird thing to me, is the actress who plays Miao Ying, who is Wang's fiance. basically has no speaking part in this movie. She's just there to look pretty. And I looked up the actress, and forgive me, I didn't write her name down, but apparently she was a model, a Playboy Playmate model, and that's why she was hired. So I'm assuming that they tried having her do some dialogue and it just didn't work. But it stands out as a weird thing that she's just like completely silent throughout the movie. Even when she gets kidnapped, like she doesn't do any yelling or fussing. And it's always stood out as kind of the weird part of the movie to me, but it's pretty small. It's pretty easy to kind of just squint your eyes and get by it. Because the whole rest of the movie is just incredible. Like I said, Kurt Russell, you've got Dennis Dunn, you've got Kim Cattrall as the female lead in the movie. James Hong, who plays David Lopan, is incredible. Everyone in the movie is great in their role. It's just incredible. I don't know what else to say about it except you have to see this movie. Except I do know the other thing I'm going to say about it, which is the amazing piece of trivia that I learned while I was doing research for this vlog is the original script for Big Trouble in Little China was actually set in the Wild West. So imagine that kind of alternate universe, if you can, for a minute. 1880s, 1890s San Francisco instead of mid-1980s San Francisco. And Jack Burton riding into town on his horse as a cowboy instead of driving into town in his big rig as a trucker. It could have been pretty cool, but the studio decided that it was just too much for audiences to have both the unreality of the Wild West setting and then the extra unreality of the Chinese fantasy stuff. And so they hired W.D. Richter to rewrite the script into the movie that we actually see. And he is the guy who directed The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, which is just a perfect answer for me as to why Big Trouble in Little China feels the way that it does, because it feels a lot like Buckaroo Banzai if you think about it. So that's kind of a cool connection to find out about. But also, man, I would love to see in the alternate universe where Big Trouble in Little China is like a weird Western. That would be amazing. So Big Trouble in Little China, like I said, 10 out of 10. Required viewing. Definitely recommending that for everyone. If you haven't seen it recently, watch it again. If you have seen it recently, watch it again. But really, if you've never seen this film, please, please, please watch it because it's one of the most fun movies I think I've ever seen in my life. And it's just a glorious fun time every time we watch it. So there's that film. The next night, we did not have as fun of a time. The next night, Henry wanted to watch Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, which is Freddy's Revenge. He asked me if it was any good, and I said, I can't remember. The first Nightmare on Elm Street is such a phenomenally good horror movie. I did not remember any of the sequels as being any good, but I said, I'm willing to give it a try. Let's take a look and see. And you guys know. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is craptastic and basically not worth watching. I think some of the later sequels in the franchise get better. And like I said last week about Final Destination, if you're a completist, you probably want to watch Nightmare 2 just because that will get you to the number 3, which is Dream Warriors, and then onwards through the franchise. But boy, it's like on the heels of a film like Nightmare on Elm Street, which I would give like a 9.5 out of 10, maybe even 10 out of 10. It's really good. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 is like a 3 out of 10. I mean, the writing was kind of crappy. The acting was crappy. The story was kind of dumb and thin. It had these weird transitions in it. It just is not good. I will say it does have good effects, some great, gory, horror-y stuff that you expect from these type of movies. But the rest of it just totally fell flat, totally didn't impress. The lead guy, who I can't even remember the name of the actor, is just like, I kept watching the movie and thinking, well, you're no Johnny Depp. Which, I mean, it's a hard act to follow, but it's amazing to me how good the first movie was, like way, way, way up here. And then the second one was just like, ugh. So I don't think we're going to be watching any more Nightmare on Elm Street movies anytime soon. The kids will probably convince me in a couple months to pick up again and try number 3. But Yeah, I was not into this one at all. I will say the one fun moment for me was recognizing the actor who plays the lead character's dad in this movie, Clu Gulager. He's from Return of the Living Dead, which is one of my favorite movies. And so that was fun to spot him in this movie. But other than that, and a couple of special effects moments, it was just a total stinker that really wasn't worth our time. So enough of that one, not recommending it. The next night after that, we watched The Crazies, aka Codename Trixie, 1973, directed by George Romero. This one was pretty interesting. This is kind of, I mean, I don't want to say a lost film because we have the internet, so there are no lost films, but it's definitely one of Romero's lesser known movies. But it's really good. I was well impressed with this one. It is another sci-fi horror movie, very much in the vein of Night of the Living Dead, only instead of zombies, this time what we have is a man-made plague. An army plane carrying a bioweapon crashes in a small town. People wind up getting infected with this disease, and it makes them become like hysterically homicidal and start killing other people. So then you have the army response. They come in, they lock down the city, they put a big quarantine on everyone. And then the movie really becomes about how the citizens of this town respond to being put under martial law and what is the army doing to try and control this outbreak of this horrible disease. It's really good. And it's, you know, like a lot of zombie movies, it becomes kind of a study in what different groups of people would wind up doing and how those forces oppose each other during a apocalyptic type of scenario. So I'm always interested in that type of thing, especially if it's done well. And I felt like it was done really well in The Crazies. The acting is pretty good. I mean, like there's some kind of but there's some really good performances by some of the actors. And the thing I really loved about this film, is actually two things I loved. There was when they call out the army and they decide to send out the planes with, you know, bombs to possibly wind up bombing this town if that's what they need to do. There's this really interesting, very like super quick cut editing that's going on with like the sounds of marching, the sounds of military vehicles and weapons as the kind of backdrop sound to this very like fast, choppy. First, you're seeing a pilot in a plane, then you're seeing a plane flying over, then you're seeing guys in like a war room, strategizing with each other about what to do, and then it cuts back to another army guy or, you know, another plane flying. And it really had this great fast pacing to it that did some great storytelling really fast, which I liked a lot. And the other thing that I really liked about this movie was obviously just as kind of a side goof thrown in by Romero. But in the kind of war room scenes where you see these, these guys from the late 60s, early 70s, with horrible glasses and bizarre fashion that makes no sense to us now, but whatever. They're very seriously having these discussions about what are they going to do? How are they going to, stop this disease? And how are they going to save the town or maybe bomb the town out of existence to save everybody else? And it's very serious, but they're constantly shown snacking on fruits and vegetables. So like at one point there's just an orange, like a half peeled orange in the background. And then they show a guy like eating the orange, and there's a different shot of a different guy eating a banana. And then there's a part where they're having pickles, and it's like a weird running gag inside of the movie in these very serious scenes where these guys are just sitting there eating fruit and vegetables. Anyhow, I just loved it. It really tickled my funny bone exactly the right way. So The Crazies. If you enjoy the films of George Romero, especially the first Night of the Living Dead, the slower pace, the where it becomes sort of half about how people are mistreating each other instead of about this supernatural or disease vector type event that's happening, you will like this movie a lot. If you like 70s horror, if you like any of the stuff that I just described while I was talking about this movie, you'll like it. The kids thought it was a little bit slow. They were a little kind of, we got to the end and they were like, well, I guess that was okay, but I really, really enjoyed it. So there's my review. And for our fourth movie this week, kind of a little out of character for us, I got the recommendation from Reddit to check out A Knight's Tale from 2001, of course, starring Heath Ledger. When this film first came out, it missed me. I was just old enough that I was like, oh, that movie seems like it's for kids or teens, or like, it just seems stupid to me. I don't want to watch it. And so I skipped it. But I got a recommendation from someone on Reddit, and they were saying, it's not a great movie, but it does its thing really well. And I was like, okay, I could get down with like a medieval adventure about knights jousting. Let's check it out. So we watched it. And I have to say, I was pretty impressed with this film. Now, it does have a anachronistic soundtrack, which is completely obnoxious. And if you are some kind of a historical purist and this is going to bug you, don't watch the movie. The soundtrack is all classic rock. It starts with We Will Rock You at a tournament. It's diegetic music. In the film, the people watching the tournament are doing the hand clapping for We Will Rock You at the beginning, like, to pump up and get ready for these guys to come out and do their jousting. Throughout the film, you've got... oh God, there's David Bowie, there's an AC/DC song, there's Thin Lizzy. I can't even remember the whole soundtrack. It's all songs that I know and love, but it's distracting to have it put over the top of a movie that's supposed to take place in medieval times. It reminded me of Moulin Rouge and some other films kind of from the same era where it's like, oh, what if we do this historical thing, but then we kind of twist it into modern times? And it's like a cute idea, but then when you watch a whole movie full of it, it just falls flat for me on the soundtrack. Other than the anachronistic soundtrack, I really enjoyed this film. I was actually shocked at how much I liked it. Took me on an emotional journey. It made me cry at one point. It was pretty sweet. And it does do what it does really well. The funny parts are very funny. The jousting scenes are incredible. They did such a good job on these jousting scenes. And the whole movie is jousting scenes. I mean, probably like 50% of the screen time is spent on these amazing jousting scenes. I will say I found out in my research for this vlog that the way they did the jousting scenes is they built these lances that were designed to just explode on impact so that the stunt riders wouldn't get hurt when they got hit with a lance. And so the way they did this was they hollowed out the lances and then filled them with shards of balsa wood, which is very soft, but also uncooked linguine. So when you see the lances shattering in A Knight's Tale, just keep in mind that's pasta flying through the air. But they did a good job of fooling me. I really bought it. So loose story is you've got a lowborn man played by Heath Ledger, who's the squire of a knight. The knight dies. Heath Ledger puts on the armor and starts posing as the knight. He now wants to enter lots of tournaments and win a bunch of money as a knight, but he's not a nobleman, so he can't enter. And then he happens to meet Geoffrey Chaucer on the road. Chaucer is naked because he's lost all of his clothing and money gambling it away. And he knows how to make the correct paperwork to fool the people who are running the tournaments into thinking that Heath Ledger's character is actually a nobleman and an actual knight and can actually compete in these tournaments. So they pick up Chaucer as their kind of side guy and hype man. And then this little team of, you've got Heath Ledger, his two friends who are acting as his squires, Chaucer, and then there's a female blacksmith who they pick up also along the way. And you kind of have this band of ragamuffin poor folks posing as, the team for a nobleman who's going to come in and, win the tournament and win the day. And of course, win the heart of the beautiful Jocelyn, who he's in love with. So ultimately, it's an adventure romance. And it goes a little heavy on the romance side, but that's kind of the deal with chivalry. But yeah, I was actually shocked at how much I like this film and what a good job it did at doing its movie. Everyone in it gives a great performance. And like I said, the stunt riding and the special effects stuff around the jousting scenes are incredible. And the camera work in the jousting scenes is also great. So totally recommended. Again, unless the anachronistic music is going to bug the shit out of you, in which case you might want to skip it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it to the point where I recommended it to my mom this week. So hi, Mom, if you're watching this video, I hope you watch A Knight's Tale and love it. And that brings us up to the end of the week for this week. And as usual, I will ask you guys what you've been watching and if you have any recommendations for our chapter of Cinema Club. I'm not sure what we're going to be watching this week, but stay tuned. I guess you'll find out next week. And of course, I will be back in a couple more days with another episode of my vlog. So stay tuned for that one as well. But that's it. I'm going to sign off now. I'm going to wish you guys a great week ahead and invite you to take care and stay safe as I always do. And once again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.